we all believe the same thing about the plant and we think it can change culture.
The burning weed with its roots in hell. It is too late.
Removing the stigma thread.
The message is out there. The flame is getting hotter.
And we're trying to turn that light on where we are in our community. What does this mean?
The Greenhouse Podcast.
Welcome to the Greenhouse Podcast. What a glorious day. We have Dave and Josh from GRAV, guys.
Brandon.
Oh my God, shoot me in the
Okay,
foot.
you can call them whatever you want.
Right here, I'm shooting you in the foot because that's how that works.
It's okay. There's post, right?
I'm sorry.
You were
No
looking at
post,
Josh.
no post.
You were
I was looking at Josh. Dave and Brandon from GRAV are joining us. Got that right the second time. Thank you so much for making the trip. How is life in Texas for GRAV?
Great, such a long trip to see you guys. all of like 40 minutes.
I know. We're just like, oh God, he had to just like drive down 35. Like, we got to make it the best for him.
It's all good today.
It was great. To your point before we started, it was like, you know, just driving 40 minutes, it's like the entire culture changes. You know, like Austin's just a different place, and you know, the city council just said, hey, stop arresting people completely. So you know, and that's starkly in contrast with like, you know, how many trips we all take to these, you know, legal markets where it's just over, right? And then you know, everyone's just like, what do you mean? This isn't the same way everywhere.
Yeah.
You just like
Right,
get comfortable
Yeah, you
and
forget.
right, exactly. You just go to the store, buy weed, smoke it, whatever. You know, it's like you know, here it's like, you know,
A little more cagey.
Yeah,
Can't
a little
talk
more
about it. Can't even
cagey.
talk about.
Thank God we've got that hemp flower, though.
Looks the same, smells the same.
Feels good on my joints.
When you tell
my
people
joints.
what you do, when you meet new people, and you're in Texas, you've been in business since 2004. Yeah, that's a long time to be in glass and to be doing what you're doing. What was it like back then telling people what you were doing, and did it sort of blow their minds a little bit, or were you even cagey about saying anything?
well, I was, and I'll let Brandon chime in whenever he wants because he was, you know, around at the same time.
It was
but-
not cagey.
No, not at all. It was like, yeah, it was no. In a way, it was like when I was home with my parents. I always say like, oh, I'm in the glass business, right? And most people are just like, oh, great, because they really don't want to know. They're just asking. You know,
Their
when they're
eyes just
dressing.
glaze over. And
Yeah,
they're
but
like,
if they're
okay.
like, oh, tell me more, I'm like, oh, I make bongs for weed, and then you know just straight into it, right? And it would always get a good reaction. I mean, honestly, like even back then, it was already, you know, if they you know whoever had a problem with it did it, you know, I think that everybody already knew that they were on the wrong side of history at that point.
Right. Right.
But they, you know, but then they would quietly go off to the side. Right, and right. So yeah, it was definitely a different world, but I think that it was already kind of, the momentum was already swinging at that point.
In Austin.
Yeah. Or maybe just within your own.
You know, it's back to the bubble conversation, right? Like, yes, back to, you know, within our culture where we grew up, our friends, our family. I mean, yeah, we had some outliers that we would talk shit about. Like, yeah, that guy's mom is a piece of shit, whatever. You know, whatever, you know? But yeah, I mean, you know, if you came to Gruene or you came to, you know, or you went to somewhere East Texas, you know, wherever you know, if you got outside of these major metropolitan areas, yeah, it was immediately like, yeah, you better, you know, lock it up.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very, very scary. So I just maybe want to do some introductions. I would love some introductions from you guys, because I know you, Dave.
Yep.
Brandon, you're new to the scene.
Yep.
Relatively speaking. So I want to know your story.
Yeah. So, well, I was gonna chime in. I'll kind of preface that by saying
Yes,
that.
yes.
While I was saying that Dave wasn't cagey, you know, Dave and I have known each other for a really long time now. We met playing t-ball 35 years ago.
What?
And so I was just thinking, when it making me think about, like, was Dave cagey about it? You know, we'd go to a high school reunion or something, and people would be so excited to like say that they're a car salesman or something, you know, like trying to impress everybody. And Dave would just be like, yeah, I make bongs. Kind of like it was like your litmus test on people. You could see like because some people didn't know what to do with that, and other people are like, oh no shit, like you're looking like how did you make that work?
Which community was this where you guys grew up?
We grew up in Houston, kind of like
Close to Katy area.
yeah, like halfway to Katy. So our high school was like closer to downtown, but we live like halfway to Katy.
Do you want to give a shout out to
Our high school.
High school.
Our high school is no longer.
It no longer exists.
No, I know high schools, are a big deal in some places in Houston. I mean, we always shout out New Braunfels High School.
I mean, we're unicorns.
I
so
think our
we're
biggest
unicorns
claim to
for life.
fame, probably since we graduated, was that Anthony Bourdain's last show that he did in Houston, he went to our high school.
Oh wow.
And like sat there and like did like because it still exists, although it's not the same thing that it was then, and we would be zoned to a different school now. So
So just a building
So
now?
you just don't look back.
they
and
converted
remember.
it shortly after into an ESL only, and then it became. I don't actually know what it's focused on now. Do you?
Well, and then it got name changed because it was called Robert E. Lee,
were
and
the-
then
the
that got
generals.
wiped out, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
and then they tore down the school, built another school on where the baseball fields were, and so we don't really know.
There's nothing to shout out to anymore. But
I feel
Anthony
that.
Bourdain kept it real. He was,
Shout out to Bourdain. So at what point on this journey did you kind of come in as a business partner?
So that's recent. It's been within the past years that it's past year that it's official. I mean, I've seen Dave through every aspect of it. I mean, I can even remember being, in South America, traveling when we were out of undergrad, and Dave was making some gravity bongs and was potentially going to be going to law school, and he was like, "I think I might not go to law school," and that was. 15, 16, 17 years ago. I don't know. Time keeps going by.
It was 04.
And so I've watched every step of the iteration all the way through. I did move away from Texas for a little bit, but Dave and I have always kind of talked about the business. Dave's run this thing, at least from, there's a huge team that helps with everything, but from business decisions and stuff, Dave's been kind of the one calling the shots for a long time. So I've been able to see what his thought process is throughout it. And then the timing just seemed right to take GRAV to the next level as the world's starting to change. There's a lot more opportunity. There's ways for us to get a little bit bigger and louder and do new things. And so, I came on officially partnering with Dave last year. And so in that, focusing on running our existing operations, helping Dave figure out where we're going next, what are all the new product lines, categories, et cetera, that we can get into.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Amazing. That's so exciting because it's a big, you've added a very big piece of this business, it feels like, because it is you. And it's not like an ego thing, but GRAV has been an unassuming brand. I mean, it's an iconic brand. And then if you dig a little deeper, there's Dave. That's it. It's GRAV Dave, right? And so bringing Brandon in, who's been on this journey with you, just not, in the way that you were, feels big. It feels awesome.
It seems like you were taking a lot of stress calls.
Yeah.
You were like, okay, you're going to be all right.
Well, Brandon's being very humble. He has had an incredible career of his own that worked for some amazing companies and much bigger than GRAV, and that you can all troll and try to find out. We don't need to mention them here, but
No shout outs.
no unicorn. The culmination of us kind of coming together is, in a way, it's always been like in an advisory capacity. Every challenge, every new product hurdle, idea that I had has always run past Brandon. But the whole concept of like Gravitron being, having to do with me, it's like I've been fighting against that my whole career, right? Like this was always like, hey, let's build something bigger than one person, right? I've prided myself on getting on being hard to find, right? Like I don't do a lot of media. I'm not really in the limelight. I've done a few of these podcasts and been in some videos for the company, but I'm not out there like some of the other CEOs, and I think that there are some people internally who would like to change that. I just don't really enjoy being in front of the camera that much. But I also don't enjoy being in front of the company that much. And this has been a story of Brandon coming on has been much needed partner that I've been looking for my whole career. Right, like having it's lonely to be making these decisions on your own without.
I mean, it's true. I mean, I mean that. Like when you're up there alone and you don't feel like you've got a confidant or someone that can understand your heart space, that shit's hard.
Yeah, for sure.
I feel very lucky to have Liz for sure. She's my business partner in media, but we met Josh, and I think the three of us can't do this without each other. So I understand that. That's inspirational. I'm happy.
I'll let you know when I feel like I'm at the top.
Okay, cool. right. Yes.
I do think that
The
you're
top of today's heap.
Yeah.
you're a product guy through and through, though. Like if you said you don't necessarily want to be the face. You don't it's not you don't get all of your energy from being in front of the company, but you do if we locked you in with our design team and you got to go work on products and what are the things that we're solving. That's where in this, my role is to help get you to do more of that stuff and get you out in front of people a little bit.
Yeah,
but not as
you can only do everything up until the point you can't do anything, and then you're like, the fuck.
Damn, that was deep, Josh.
Wow.
God, that is really the most unfortunate thing is that every turn I learn that I'm not not the anything.
Right.
Like, fuck, I thought this was gonna be the thing.
Yeah, this is
No, but I have to tell you, as a rabid consumer of your product, and I am not alone. People want to know, the genesis behind these products, even if it's something like, damn, I did not believe in that bong, but we brought it to market anyway. Those are interesting stories that help us to connect more with these pieces, right? And, I think I read an interview in which you mentioned that you wanted to leave something that was so outside of you, but so loved, something that truly affects people. And it does. It's about the ritual. It's about how beautiful they are. It's about, the herb that's in them, and people use your pieces during moments of their lives that are big.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to break it down, these pipes are like appliances, right? Like they're just a function of it's a platform for consumption, and but you won't find any other appliances that people name. Let's hit the mothership, right? Let's go.
Right.
There's not people literally place personas into their pipes, and so you're designing objects that have such an incredible emotional contribution to people's lives, and so there's just no better reward when you're out in the world and you're wearing a GRAV shirt and people stop and are like, oh, bro, I love GRAV. You're like, I don't even understand how you found it, right? It's not like you're walking through Walmart and stumble upon it. You actually have to go seek this stuff out.
Yeah, it's illicit. It's still especially in Texas, the company that that state that the company's founded in, which is just hilarious. I mean, did you ever think about just saying fuck this and going to Colorado or California?
It still comes up every day. What are we doing here? I mean, it absolutely comes up. Texas is such an incredible shit show. I mean, back to the wrong side of history. I mean, every single one of these politicians is just completely, disengaged with what's actually going on the ground. Otherwise, I mean, we know where it's polling. There's just a very small contingent of people who are still pushing back.
They just got a lot more money than we do, so they are able to. 4 of them pulled in one direction is equivalent to 400,000 of us pulling in another direction.
Yeah, but if
I don't think it's about the money, though. I think it's about I think it's about unity. You have an older contingent of people who are still scared of this, and the young people don't know how to go out and vote or actually influence their representatives.
That's right. That's right. There's very important knowledge held by a select few, and that's not because there's some conspiracy out there. It's because You know, well,
But there might be.
we talk about that. Put a pin in it, Josh, because I got a point to make. No, but really, it's about seeking out this information and sharing it. You know, and that's very much the mission of this podcast. You know, it starts with cannabis for us. We became friends on this really fun cannabis conference circuit where we're meeting amazing people, and you know, we're covering all of it. And we meet Josh, and every single one of our conversations was inspirational, whether it was about cannabis or about education or about, you know, whatever else is going on in our lives. And so I just feel like cannabis is a connector, right? We wouldn't be here without that, because you built the dopest appliance for that. Thank you very much. And so that's what it's about. So I'm really grateful that you guys are willing to talk about that stuff and willing to be open and honest.
It's a very communal event, smoking herb, whether it be between two people or, I mean, hell, it's even communal amongst yourself. I mean, I've smoked a joint by myself and found things out about myself that I didn't know before that session.
Best conversation with myself.
The appliances become part of it. The music becomes part of it. The locations become part of it.
Yep.
It's just you know, it is communal. So it's
It is.
Has anyone ever said like, this is my favorite piece, and they like really geeked out as to why? Like, have you gotten like that sort of feedback from people?
Yeah, this is yours.
Oh yeah, I want to hear the stories. I want to hear the
I mean, I think that there's, well, I'm just coming back from a trade show. We had our biggest trade show of the year, so it's like all clouded by that, and you have a lot of like, champs.
Yeah.
So, you know, I have a lot of like shop owners, and people are like, oh my God, these are all my favorite things, like, because they sell them really well, and you know, and you know, we're grateful for that. But end users, I think that this is actually a big challenge in our industry. Is like we don't have great, like, you know, it's not like other CPG where you have focus groups and you can really measure like what's working, what's not, what, you know, what true favorite, why it's their favorite. Do they actually try all of them to know it's their favorite? Like what, you know, you know, there's, you know, we've got, you know, 200, 300 SKU. Do you know how many SKUs we have?
It's 338 right now.
338 different pipes to choose from. So, you know, whenever everybody does say like, oh my God, this one's my favorite, how many have you smoked out of?
Yeah.
Right? Like, you know, it's amazing.
Do they kind of hit the catalog and stick around forever, or is there stuff that cycles through, or?
Great question.
How's that?
A little bit of both. Yeah. We should have fewer SKUs than we have. But yeah, I think for the most part, there's constantly new innovation, and then some stuff that just, you know, slowly just kind of we come up with a new style of something, so we'll turn it over. But one of the things that I was going to say, going back to that, you know, I've only been officially part of GRAV for about a year or so, and less so than people coming up and talking to me about a piece. It's that I get a lot of people who come up to me who just in however they knew me before, like an investment banker, I train jiu-jitsu, a bunch of people that I train jiu-jitsu with, like different folks that'll come up to me that never would have talked to me about cannabis in the past. And all of a sudden, like there's a little flag that's planted that they'll come and you know, I wear the hat around a lot. And so it's just funny that like something that prior to that moment, you know, it's like a teacher at my kid's preschool, the guy who used to, you know, give me loans at the bank, anybody that's checking me out at the grocery store. That conversation has completely changed from people who were, I don't know, a little timid about it in the past. And so I've always seen Dave go up and just confront it. Like people are like, what are you doing? He's like, oh, I make bongs, you know? And it's like, he does that immediately. And now I'm getting more of those conversations, and then that'll lead to somebody being like, oh, by the way, my favorite piece is such and such, you know? And they're like,
that's awesome. That's so awesome.
And it's just been, that has been my favorite part of the conversation, because then people also don't get to talk about it as much in whatever, you know, depending on their work, whatever they're doing, their social circles. And so then they also want to talk my ear off about all the ways that they love cannabis and what they want to do. You know, like this is, you know, we live in Texas, what the hell's going on, all that stuff.
Right.
So.
Wow. Yeah.
Those conversations can get real old real quick sometimes. With the wrong people, they just,
Especially the legalization question. It's just, I don't fucking know. Just come on, vote. Vote. You know, who is your local person? Let's start there. What are local attitudes like? You know, because Texas is Texas. And I feel like just as an American, I have the least control here as a Texan, it's just because it feels like our laws change very slowly. And we have there's a very strong group of individuals who are holding on tightly to, old ways of thinking. So rather than fighting that, let's talk about the future and like, what is GRAV doing? Because I know that I smoked a little GRAV Eel River at the Emerald Cup this year.
Wow, sweet. Okay.
Yes,
Nice.
and it was so...
Oh, happy you got some. All right,
Yes,
great.
I did. Danny is so great about keeping me in the loop. And so talk to us about that.
I should just say, before we talk about that, despite the fact that this is really obnoxious in Texas and everybody's, wondering what's going on, it's still Texas, unlike these, Colorado, California, all the other legal markets, has still a lot of hope, right? Like you talk to lay people in these other markets and they're like, yeah, the ship sailed, right?
Oh, yeah.
Everybody in Texas still has a possibility of participating in some way.
Yes.
And that's really exciting.
Yes,
So,
you're right. Yeah.
it's like, hey, keep going for it, right? Like, ask all the questions, get into the market. It's going to be, I would argue, I think Texas is going to be a bigger market than California. I do.
It's the third largest economy in the U.S. right now, so it has the potential.
I think it's the cannabis is Googled the most in Texas.
Yes, that we learned that. At
Two
the
fun
Museum of
facts
Weed.
back to back.
Boom, boom.
It's been, I have a question about that. Why do you think Texas is going to be bigger than Cali? The market.
Oh, pretty simple metric. It has more head shops per capita than any other state in the country.
Probably has more Californians than California has at this point in the game.
Yeah.
That is true. That is very interesting. No, I love that. And I see what you're saying. That is the silver lining, is that we haven't fucked up yet. Because we can't. Still illegal. Womp womp.
Oh, we'll fuck it up. I mean,
No, but not yet is what
every
I'm
state fucks
saying.
it
Not
up.
yet. We haven't fucked it up, so there's hope there. But I do want to go back to that weed, y'all.
Yeah, so I'll start with the Eel River thing. So you mentioned something earlier when talking about our products about it's really about paying homage to what we're putting in these devices, right? So the glass is just a vessel, right? That's all it is. It's a way to help you consume that cannabis. And so the partnership with Eel River and even the concept of the glass joints that we have, it's a way to have a pre-filled, we're going out and finding partners that we feel have a great product that we can then put in something that it's clean, it's recyclable, it's all the great things about having a true clean experience that's pure, right? Where the flower that you get in those glass joints is, it's minimally processed. There's a whole host of things, like we're not pulverizing it like you'd have to do in order to get it into a cone, or papers. Like we can keep a pretty large consistency of it because it's going into glass and you're pushing as opposed to using a vibration table. So finding something that, and you can see it, it's glass, so you can also see what you're getting. You have, what you're smoking, and then that experience also. I didn't have my buddy next to me roll it and then put all of his saliva on top and then hand it to me. Yeah, exactly. And so it just gives a really clean, beautiful platform, a way that we can highlight and put our brand next to some cultivators who we're really proud of. And this is just the beginning of that. So,
Absolutely. I think that's it's brilliant. Again, as a consumer, it just makes sense. And I think Eel River won an award for Best Sun Grown at the Emerald Cup.
They got, for their CO2 cart. So we're actually, we're their first direct flower that they're selling. So they have their own pre-roll as well. And they got first for that. And then their product is also in Vince Gummies, which got second place on the gummy side.
I didn't even know why I thought that I could remember what place. We were in the pit, like right on stage, just smoking,
filming,
loving life, because everybody was out there cheering for like the winners, and we were just like, yeah. So it was an experience. But Eel River, definitely, that guy he's got the weed sticking out of his hat. He's a really interesting looking character.
Yeah, he is a one of a kind. Ty is he's 6th generation cannabis farmer. He learned from his grandmother.
What?
So he's the real deal.
Wow.
His voice is, it's got that just rasp.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
He'll pull a bud down from his hat and give it to you. Yeah. No, but I do want to chat a little bit about the glass joints. We were introduced to them maybe 6 months ago at CBD party where, you know, GRAV was showing a few new things and Maria showed us. And we were instantly just blown away at the simplicity of them. They're
Sustainability.
beautiful.
you know.
Sustainability. Like, I'm imagining partnerships with dispensaries where you have your GRAV glass joints and you go every couple days and you just refill. You return those joints. You know, there doesn't have to be much waste at all. You know, I took them to Jamaica because I test stuff. I love stuff. I'm a consumer.
Field testing.
And oh my God, it was just so awesome just to have like a fresh little capsule at night. And I had like 3 indica and 3 sativa. I like set myself up for a couple days. Well, because we were shooting, you know, and so, you know, I wanted to have them ready so that we could, you know, I wouldn't stress about like, oh my God, roll me a joint or, you know.
How much flour's in these things?
0.5 gram per joint.
Yeah, and you just push when you're done with it, you literally push the ash out, and then you put the cap back on it, so you can also save them. So by the end of the trip, there were many glass joints all around the house. We shared the house with that Last Prisoner Project folks.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, and so we were all just kind of like, we had our places to like put them, you know, because you have to share, and we both got a kit, so.
But
just what a fun experience.
The streamlinedness of the way you guys think sometimes. I think the glass has sort of a beautiful, elegant streamlinedness, if that's the word, but certainly with the refillable joints, that's what I liked about it, because sometimes when you're like not sure where you're going to be smoking, you want to just be able to put it away very quickly.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I just like that it was clean and neat and organized.
Yeah, I think that first of all, this has been a project in the making for like 3 years. It was kind of, you know, the concept, and this, you know, you asked earlier how products come to be, and you know, most of the time it's my gut saying like, I think that smaller, it was actually like a piece of data. I think I found at Headset, who like I love, by the way, plug for Headset.
Shout out.
So I, you know, it was like, you know, the biggest consumer category of cannabis is not like, you know, flower, vapes, or, you know, it's like transactions between $5 and $10, which like really kind of set my mind off. Like, and so how are, you know, you don't go to, you know, these convenience stores, Walgreens or Walgreens, CVS, you know, people are buying kind of in real time, you know, in a lot of different markets now. And that's, you know, one of the biggest shifts in cannabis culture as, you know, as it becomes more accepted in those specific markets that are, you know, more tenured. You have people who, you know, in Texas, you still don't know whether your guy's going to have it when you call him. And like, you don't know when your next, you know, you're going to be able to get the next nicest stuff. And in these other markets where you can be confident that the flower is going to be at the dispensary when you need it, then you realize you don't have to buy an ounce at a time when when you're going to the store. So, you know, the thesis started with like, hey, let's create something that is like, you know, what does the beer bottle of weed look like? And it went through a billion different iterations to get to where we were today. But
The beer bottle of weed. Can you
yeah, like
explain that?
what is a single use? And I can tell you that like this is not that. We're still not there. But like, you know, at a certain point you have to ship your product. You have to put it out there. Like, it's not perfect. I'm going to tell you that, like, you know, hammer us. Tell us all the things you hate about it, right?
They're very breakable. I mean, it's a fine glass.
Yeah,
it's like
you know,
they're, you know, not meant to like.
Yeah, the packaging is plasticky. The mouthpiece isn't perfect. You know, I know all of the things that we hate about it, and we will innovate on it. But like, this is what I've been doing my whole career, right? Like, it's just been a 16-year series of innovations on top of what we've already done. But again, to the concept of what is the single use, like what is it? You know, like you're not sharing a beer. Right, and we see that in like most of these markets. This, you know, people aren't sharing joints anymore. It's actually like the ritual is everybody gets a joint, right?
Yeah.
And like, you know, again, different than Texas, right? But like, yeah, you're gonna all smoke together with your own joint, and you know that's where we're going with this. And you know, we'll continue to push towards sustainability, and we do hope that people reuse them. You know, there's a lot of there's a lot of waste out in this world, and you know, in this industry, as I say, cannabis is no exception. You know, but there are going to be people, you know, like beer bottles who just don't want to refill these, right? You don't refill your beer bottles, but you totally could. I mean, that, speaking of objects, a beer bottle
growler.
is beautiful.
Right.
Have you ever looked at it? It's like you just throw them away,
Right.
Like, we should refill those. But you don't. And so there's a story there. And I think it is also the story of glass as a consumption platform, right? Like we've been trained for the last, 30 years that people have been making glass pipes, more 50 years that people have been making glass pipes. And, that this is like, an expensive, precious object and, you would never just dispose of it. Right. But we throw away our beer bottles every day. So, there's a little bit of a culture shift in what we're trying to do, to accomplish, but we've got our own, challenges in accomplishing that. So, it's just the beginning, to start telling that story.
Awesome.
What was the first pipe you ever made?
Gravitron.
Right, but I mean, tell us what was your inspiration? How did you do it? Do you remember putting it together? Like, go back to that moment.
Yeah, no, I mean the Gravitron was born of like, college dorm room, like, hey, we need a gravity bong, and we were taking Jim Beam bottles and scoring them, and then like dressing up in space suits and trying to crack the score, and then so like so we were designing these pipes, and some guy, the name came from some guy that walked in and was like, yo, let's hit that Gravitron thing, like, and it stuck. Boom. And then I was, I went to work after we were traveling in South America, and I always kind of wanted to try to pull this off, right? Like, how do you make, no one had made an affordable gravity bong. And, on that note, I took it to the High Times Cannabis Cup, and, flashing forward in 2006. And, everybody was kind of like, oh, I can make one of those at home. And the answer is like, kind of like the beer bottles, you can make anything at home, right? Like, you can smoke out of this candle. Like, there's really no like restrictions, but, it was an exercise, and it was my MBA in design. Like, I had to figure out how to make this thing, and I had a concept, and I had to iterate on it, and it was as simple as like, okay, well, what are my design parameters here, right? Like, I've got real design parameters around cost. Like, we can't be over $50 retail, which, by the way, means that you have to make something for about no more than $10, right? In order to sell it wholesale for $25, and cover your margins, and sell it, ultimately retailers get $50. And then you have the actual physical parameters, like how much space do you need in the bucket, and how much room does the bottle can the bottle move around? You still have to ship the bottle in the vase, both glass. How do you protect them from in the shipping process? There's all kinds of design parameters that we that I had to do in a bubble, and little ones like there's a grommet on the bottom of the Gravitron, right? Flash 2 Gravitron. So there's a bottom on the bottom of the Gravitron that is this little like U-channeled grommet that goes on the cut bottle, and of course you can just go buy that at Home Depot, right? You can't. It doesn't exist, right? Like there is no like.
We're
for
like,
years, for years, I was like, this gotta exist, right? Like there are rubber grommets all over the world, and ultimately I had to like bite the bullet a couple years in, and like spend the money on a mold, and I remember it was like $3,000. It almost broke me, right? I distinctly remember when I had to write that check.
Wow.
So yeah, I mean that was the first pipe, and then it was, and then the story, which I think told on other media platforms, is that I was making the downstem and the bowl that go in the top of the Gravitron, and I learned that I can make this little one hitter in the same stock tubing, because I'm making all these bowls myself. I'm cutting all of the bottles. I'm doing all of this stuff, in a little warehouse, and I was like, okay, well, I'm just gonna make these and these little one hitters and go give them out at a trade show or at ACL Fest 07. And so I was out there handing them out, and I saw a shop owner, and he was like, hey, come sell me these things, and that was it. I was like, oh man, I can design and make other stuff. And
Yes.
so I started selling these one hitters, and then I was like, oh, if people will buy GRAV one hitters, they'll buy GRAV spoons. If they buy GRAV spoons, they'll buy GRAV bubblers, so on and so forth. And then
buy GRAV
338
coffee
SKUs. Right, exactly.
My other favorite piece, the coffee mug.
I think that was actually a big strategy question, and everybody kind of has this issue. Is like, how do we narrow the scope, and should we narrow the scope? Is as a brand, are you are you going to be the Puffco Peak, and be a not one trick pony, but like they've got plenty of accessories and lots of SKUs, but it all centers around this one specific platform? Or are you going to be a cannabis brand you're going to be a multi-accessory brand? I don't want to associate with Black and Decker, but like you're a good example. You're going to have all of these different accessories that all kind of speak to one, speak through your one megaphone of like, hey, we are cannabis, and we are all kinds of cannabis consumption.
Right.
And speaking further, we were, talking about what it means to be, we're constantly talking about what it means to be this brand, and what kind of, responsibilities we have as a brand outside of just the objects that we make. Kind of in preparation for sitting down with you guys, like how do we start to change the culture, right? Like there's still a lot of problems with cannabis culture, and so there's a ton of responsibility, both from designing new products and to influencing the way that this industry is going to look in the future.
That's great. I'm so glad you brought that up. We are, fierce advocates and activists, and every time we light up, we got to think about those people who are incarcerated currently for doing the same thing that is now legal in their state. Think of all of the, just the people that have suffered to get where we are, and we get to go to this fun party at MJ BizCon and laugh it up. It's very, very, very fucking important, I think, to, mention that and remember, that we are working for a cause. So can I ask you a little bit more about that? What cause to you guys is closest to your heart, and, what are you guys working towards?
Well, I mean, considering we are 5 white people in the heart of the South talking about this.
But we are who we are, I didn't ask to be born, but I have the platform that I have. So
I think that's the key part, is that what we keep thinking about is we do have an audience. We have, through our products, through the brand that we have, as we are, we're starting to go state by state and create partnerships in the recreational markets that are going to be not just accessories, but cannabis specific products. And in that, we do feel that there's a certain responsibility that we have as a brand to be cognizant that this is not, I kind of come from a startup background, and it's just not like we got some money and let's just go conquer an industry like type thing. This is, let's be really thoughtful about this. And there's a lot of context, and we need to understand the current, social justice issues, the ones that we've inherited that come, and where we're going from here. So there are a lot of things, from not just thinking about the Last Prisoner Project, which we care a ton about, and we try to partner with them when we can. But then in addition, there's ways that we can do it just in who we partner with. Like, who are we choosing to highlight, as we're going to go into new states, to give them, to align our voices and say, like, these are some people that we really think are either doing it the right way or thinking about this from a conscious perspective. And so it's not just necessarily of like, what nonprofits do we like? It's how are we kind of voting with our brand as we go and like make a bigger splash across the country, to make sure that we are using our platform to raise awareness that this is not as easy as people think it is. Like, there's a lot of complicated issues. And with that, just some of the stats around the, what was it? It's a couple of years old, but that less than 1% of dispensaries are owned by people of color. Historically, the black market has been something that allows marginalized communities to actually create an income. Now that's kind of having a whitewashing as we're coming through, and folks that look like us are the ones who are getting those permits, and other people aren't, and you're getting cut out. And there's just a lot of, I definitely don't have the answer, but it's just a matter of like being aware of this every step of the way, and like, what can we do to make sure that we're thinking about this and being conscious of it, and advocating for what we think is the right side of history, and making that at every decision.
It's a really beautiful time because I do think most cannabis centered or cannabis lensed businesses are thinking about this stuff, and it is like you said, we don't want to just conquer an industry here. It's about doing this plant right as this industry blooms, and that heart, that thought that we're all like really trying to do the right thing here, it carries. And again, we're in Texas now, and so my hope is that because we've been behind, we're going to see some really positive change because we've witnessed other states doing it. We can put things into actual practical use here when we start to legalize. And I'm hoping that happens. And I know that, just you guys in that space, on that, fighting that good fight, it means a lot. It means a lot in Texas. And I think it will have very positive things. So
Yeah, man, you guys make us proud.
yeah.
You really do.
You started
Texans.
a company in Texas
You
in
really
the
do.
2000s. In the
Yeah,
early
it's like,
2000s.
yeah, what?
Come
Weed's
on.
not legal, but we got Gravitron, bitch.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, come on. It really is. It's something to be proud of.
It's
you know?
awesome.
And
Yeah.
I do think that we're lucky also that Texas wasn't one of the first to go legal. As
Yeah.
much as that is hard on our lives, I don't
Agreed.
think that Texas would have done a great job with it. So, not that anybody's done a
Nobody
great
would
job,
have. This is
but
like the
Texas
first
would
time
have fucked it up more than most. So,
Yeah, if
They
they
still have the
Yeah.
availability of fucking it up more.
yeah.
I think the the new hemp regulations are coming out. I mean, this week, next week. I mean,
Yeah, soon.
real soon. They're, we'll see. But
As we sort of wrap out here, I do have one final question, just in terms of how passionate about the design and how hands on are you guys still? Do you have design meetings where you're like on a whiteboard? I got this new idea for an internal coil. Let me loop that out. Or how into the design are you guys still?
I'll let Dave answer that, but I'm just going to interject at the beginning that when I can't find Dave, that's where he is. So I'll let you kind of.
he's either in the bathroom or he's in the design room.
Well, if I have anything to say about it, there will be no more internal coils.
Okay.
Sorry for all the coil lovers out there.
I really like it.
I am
personally
a
really
coil
like it.
lover. I just talk about that shit.
No, not because of hatred for internal coils. It's more of like the market isn't going that way. And
Right.
yeah, the answer is I spend as much time as I can with Micah, our senior designer, and who is just inspiration to, has always been an inspiration to me. And I think that this that if I had my way, I would just live in his office with him. But you have to. I get out there and I'm driving, trying to see a bigger picture of where the consumer culture is going, and trying to play to that. Again, coils are not. Sorry, you guys are old.
No, it's cool. I mean, you know what? I've got vintage coils. Okay. Yeah. The kids don't like the coils. We get it. But what is your favorite part about the design process?
I paused because I was gonna say glass is magic, and it is, but I think that my favorite part about and it's not part of the design process at all. It's my favorite part of this business period is the fact that we're engaging with our end users in an incredibly meaningful way, right? I can't imagine that there is another tangible product industry that has such an impact on its early adopters and the people who are just getting in. We've got a lot of entry level people that come that buy our products because we hit a pretty aggressive price point, and so we're literally expanding people's minds. And they have such a deep passion for it. So the business side of that design process is hey, let's meet them where they are. Let's try to figure out exactly how cannabis is what this industry is going to look like in the future, and start to play to that now. We've got a great lineup of 338 SKUs, and again, I was joking let's kill them all. I mean, the issue is that we do try to be so much to so many people, and we can't always, right? Nobody can. So it does require a very specific amount of buzzword bandwidth to figure out where our next family of products or new technology is going to come from. But we're putting a lot of effort into this glass joint project. We think it can have a huge impact across the country, the industry. We just launched with hemp flower in them. So last week at the Champ Show.
Oh, awesome.
So you should be able to go get it at a head shop and then use it however you want.
I'm not telling you what to do, but use it.
I appreciate that. Well, you said glass is magic.
Yeah.
So what does that mean? I loved it, and
Well, it's like literally magic. Like you when you get on the torch and you start manipulating the glass, glass gets their hooks and glass blowers and doesn't, and kind of like it's an addiction. It like becomes like, people's personas. And I was always able to keep a safe distance because I was, looking at it from a product perspective, but, I still have a deep passion for glass blowing and what it means to be a glass blower. And, we still have a really amazing studio with 14 glass blowers that call it home. And so when I say glass is magic, I mean that like it literally kind of has it behaves how it wants to behave, right? You'll show up and, get on the torch and it's, the glass just won't cooperate with you and you just have to go home, or you show up and you can, triple your production that you did the day before. It's just it's a really interesting, animal.
wow, very cool.
That is
Very
beautiful.
cool. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, and thank you for your persistence with glass.
Yeah,
Brandon,
guys.
sorry about earlier messing up your name.
You're all good.
Brandon, Dave, thank you guys so much for being here. And I mean, you got fans and friends in us. Know that the Greenhouse Podcast, we got your guys back. You just count on us.
Yeah, great job, guys. This was super fun.
Thanks for doing what you
Awesome.
do.
Thank you, my friend.
Appreciate it.
All right. See y'all next time.
All right, bye.
Boom.